And welcome back. Now, the Global Citizen Festival is over, but that doesn't mean that you should now stop taking more action to eradicate poverty by 2030. And also, around $15 billion was pledged at the event yesterday. And this in addition to the United States of America pledging their fair share to the fight against HIV and AIDS. And to give us a little more perspective on this event and also how the HIV pandemic will be tackled, we are joined now by Deborah Birx, who is the U.S. Global AIDS Co-ordinator. Thanks so much for coming through.
Thank you.
So I was watching and I was thinking, you know, this was a festival of superstars, and not just superstars of the entertainment industry, but if you looked at the people who appeared there, who are advocates for HIV and AIDS, there was a whole list of superstars there as well.
I think, you know, Global Citizen does a wonderful job of catching the imagination of the world and then really targeting that moment in time to these really critical issues that we have, from poverty to gender equality to the issues about HIV/AIDS, which are so important to Nelson Mandela and so important to us.
Certainly are. And maybe you could just start off by reminding us about the pledge that you made. How much was that again?
It was 1.2 billion US dollars, or 16 billion rand, just over the next 2 years, really to say the United States, as it has been in partnership of sub-Saharan Africa, about $75 billion we've invested in the continent to fight HIV/AIDS through 3 presidents, 8 Congresses that continue to support this effort. But this pledge is really more than a pledge. It says we need to wake up South Africa. We have a significant problem. Yes, we're bringing additional resources, but that has to be matched with really a willingness to do things differently and to say what we've been doing is not working well enough.
And this is where we get into the grim reality of it, because unfortunately we are not going in the right direction. 7.5 million South Africans living with HIV.
So this is the real problem. 7.5 million people already living with HIV, but a new 250,000 every year added to those rolls. So when we talk about controlling the pandemic by 2030, which was the Sustainable Development Goal, you're headed to over 10 million infections by 2030, not in the right direction. Your rates of infections among young women continue to be overwhelming. The number of young men between 25 and 35 who don't know their status, it's not that anyone willingly transmits the virus. It's that they don't know they're infected because you don't have symptoms for the first 8 years. But it's eating away at your immune system. And so if we can't find you early, we can't restore you to full health. And so it's really a unique problem to South Africa in the ground that's being given back to this virus. I think Nelson Mandela would be very upset with us right now that we've squandered our opportunity to really get on top of the virus.
Now, Deborah, you touched on this earlier when you said, you know, unfortunately, we're not moving in the right direction. So we cannot keep doing what we've been doing. How do we change track? How do we do things differently in order to make the changes that we want to see?
Well, I think the youth are critical to this, and it was so great to see them at the concert last night and really their engagement, because it's going to take every youth in South Africa to want to tackle these issues that we're talking about: gender equality, poverty, HIV/AIDS. They really need to lead and help us in this response, because we've tried to do it without them being at the center. And so 2 years ago, we launched what we call DREAMS, Determined, Resilient, Empowered, AIDS-Free, Mentored, and Safe Young Women. That was joined with She Conquers, really saying that we really have to understand the lives of young women, and not only understand the lives and put them at the center, but listen to them and change our program to meet their needs. I think very much fundamental to this is preventing gender-based violence. The fact that 9 to 14-year-olds are raped is a huge problem on the continent. So we have to tackle difficult issues together, but HIV/AIDS advocates and all of us who work on it have never shied away from difficult issues. And so I really see hope at a time when we saw despair. And when we see these overwhelming numbers, we can transform that. We have the power and we have the tools. It's, do we have the community and the government working with us in the same direction?
Well, do we? And taking that slightly further, if we look at some of the obstacles, the hindrances that we face currently, which would you say are the ones that are most profound, and what should we be doing about them?
I think the most profound piece right now is the lack of understanding the consequences of HIV infection when you're under 35. You will live with this for the rest of your life. We have neither a cure or a vaccine. We do have the medication that can ensure you can thrive, but we need to find you, and you need to take this seriously. Both young women and young men have to understand their risk. In many provinces in South Africa, we have young women, a third, 30%, are positive to HIV virus by the time they're 30. This has to change, or South Africa does not have the future that it can possibly have. We see the whole sub-Saharan Africa, 60% are under 20. This is such an opportunity, but this is an opportunity that will be lost if we can't change how we're responding to this HIV/AIDS pandemic.
And, you know, there's something else, Deborah, that I have been thinking about for quite some time, and this is where we talk a lot about the infection rate and all of that, but I believe we just have a slight problem with the sound, so we'll take a break. We'll come back to this because I want to talk to you about children who were born HIV positive who find themselves now as adults, but we'll just take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll get into that.